My fiancé said I was useless in Japanese. I am the tech CEO who just deleted his code part 1. The words sliced through the air like a blade I wasn't supposed to understand. Yakuni tatanai. Useless. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Kenji thought I couldn't hear him from the kitchen, or maybe he just didn't care anymore. His voice carried that particular tone of contempt reserved for things beneath notice. Expired food, broken appliances, disappointing girlfriends who couldn't keep up with his brilliant career. I stood frozen in the hallway of our downtown Seattle penthouse, my hand still on the door I just quietly closed. Through the archway, I could see him pacing near the floor-to-ceiling windows, phone pressed to his ear, his reflection sharp against the city lights below. I, he continued in rapid Japanese. She doesn't understand anything about the tech industry. I've tried explaining my work, but it's like talking to a child. Mada wakaranai. Still doesn't understand. My throat tightened, but I kept my face carefully neutral. A skill I'd perfected over 3 years of hiding in plain sight. The merger is almost complete. Kenji switched to English now, probably talking to his friend Marcus. Once the Nakamura deal closes, I'll have enough equity to make it worth staying at Zenith. Then, he laughed, that cold sound I'd started hearing more often lately. Then maybe I'll upgrade everything. Apartment, car, girlfriend. Start fresh with someone who actually contributes something. I should have walked in right then, confronted him, ended it cleanly. Instead, I did what I'd been doing for 3 years. I slipped off my shoes, set down my bag without a sound, and became invisible. The skill had served me well in business. In love, it was destroying me. Maya, Kenji called out suddenly, his tone shifting to that bright, affectionate pitch he used when he wanted something. You home, babe? I counted to 5, then walked into the living room with my carefully crafted smile. Just got back. How was your day? He pulled me into a quick hug, already distracted by whatever was on his laptop screen. Exhausting. The Nakamura acquisition is in its final phase. Everyone's writing me about the integration timeline. That sounds stressful, I murmured, playing my role perfectly. You have no idea. He returned to his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. The technical architecture alone is giving everyone nightmares. But that's why they pay me the big bucks, right? Someone has to understand how these systems actually work. I glanced at his screen. Clean code, elegant structure. Not bad. But I could spot 3 optimization issues from here that would cause scaling problems within 6 months. I'm sure you'll figure it out, I said instead, moving toward the kitchen. Want some dinner? Sure, whatever. I need to finish this proposal for tomorrow's board meeting. Board meeting. My board meeting. Where Kenji Tanaka, Senior Systems Architect at Zenith Technologies, would present his acquisition integration plan to the executive leadership, including me. Except Kenji didn't know that the mysterious M. Chen, listed as founder and CEO on all official Zenith documents, was Maya Chen, his underachieving girlfriend, the woman he'd just called useless in a language he thought she didn't speak. The woman who'd built Zenith Technologies from nothing in her Stanford dorm room 7 years ago, grown it to a $3.2 billion valuation, and kept her identity so carefully concealed that even her own employees had never seen her face. I'd had good reasons. At 23, fresh out of Stanford with 2 master's degrees and a revolutionary AI architecture patent, I'd watched too many women in tech get dismissed, undermined, stolen from. My first startup had been hijacked by a male co-founder who convinced investors that a young Asian woman couldn't possibly have written the core algorithms. So with Zenith, I disappeared. Operated through encrypted channels, video calls with my face obscured, signed documents through my attorney, built an empire while remaining a ghost. Then I'd met Kenji at a tech conference 3 years ago. He'd been presenting on cloud architecture, confident and brilliant. After his panel, we'd started talking about quantum encryption as equals. For the first time since my first startup's betrayal, I'd connected with someone who saw me. Not my age, not my gender, not my bank account, just my mind. Or so I'd thought. "Maya, this is genius," he'd said that first night over coffee, examining the theoretical algorithm I'd sketched on a napkin. "You should be working in the industry, not wasting your talent on freelance consulting." I'd told him I was a freelance tech consultant, working with small startups on contract basis. Lived modestly, drove a used Honda, wore clothes from Target. The same careful disguise I'd maintained since my first startup's implosion. Kenji had seemed different from the sharks I'd known. Supportive, encouraging. He'd even helped me apply for positions at various tech companies, including Zenith, reviewing my resume with helpful suggestions. "You're overqualified in some areas, underqualified in others," he'd explained gently. "Maybe aim for mid-level positions first. Build up your corporate experience." I'd let him believe I kept getting rejected. Meanwhile, through my anonymous CEO channels, I'd hired him at Zenith, promoted him steadily, paid him a salary that let him feel successful. Then 6 months ago, he'd proposed. A beautiful evening on the Seattle waterfront, the ring modest but tasteful. "I know I make enough for both of us now," he'd said, sliding the ring onto my finger. "You don't have to keep struggling with those freelance gigs. Take your time. Find something you're passionate about. I'll support us." I'd said yes because I'd wanted to believe in us. In him. In the possibility that someone could love me for who I was, not what I had. How spectacularly wrong I'd been. "The Nakamura merger is going to change everything," Kenji said now, breaking into my thoughts. He'd moved to the dining table, spreading documents across the surface. "Their technology plus our platform? It's revolutionary. Once this closes, Zenith will dominate the entire cloud security sector." I set a plate of pasta in front of him. "What does Nakamura have that makes them so valuable?" He looked up, and I saw it, that flash of condescension, quickly masked. "It's complicated, technical stuff. Basically, they've cracked some problems with quantum-resistant encryption that everyone else is struggling with. Problems I'd solved 2 years ago. The patent was filed under one of my shell corporations, licensed exclusively to Zenith. Nakamura had nothing we needed. Their tech was outdated, their architecture clunky, but they had an impressive-sounding name and some strategic patents that would be useful for defense purposes. The acquisition was never about their technology. It was about market positioning and eliminating a competitor. But Kenji didn't know that. He thought he was engineering a brilliant technical merger. In reality, he was just implementing the strategy I designed with my actual leadership team 6 months ago. "Sounds complicated," I said, returning to the kitchen. "Hey, babe." His voice softened. "I know I've been distracted lately. Once this merger closes, let's take that trip to Japan you've been wanting. I can show you Tokyo. Introduce you to my family properly." My chest tightened. I'd been wanting to meet his family for 2 years. He'd always had excuses. Too busy, not the right time. His mother was traditional, and he wanted to wait until his career was more established. Now I understood. He was waiting until he could upgrade to a girlfriend worth showing off. That would be nice, I managed. And Maya? He stood, pulling me into his arms. I know the job search has been tough. Maybe it's time to consider other paths. You could take some online courses, get certified in project management or something. Not everything has to be cutting-edge tech. I smiled against his chest, even as something inside me hardened into cold diamond. Maybe you're right. I just want you to be happy, to find your place. My place. I had found my place. At the head of a billion-dollar company he'd been working at for 2 years without realizing his girlfriend owned it. I appreciate that, I said. He kissed the top of my head and returned to his laptop. Board meeting is at 9 tomorrow. I should prepare. This presentation needs to be perfect. I'm sure it will be. What he didn't know, I'd been in the office since 5 a.m. every day this week, reviewing every aspect of the Nakamura acquisition through encrypted channels with my CFO, my chief legal officer, and my actual head of architecture, a brilliant woman named Dr. Sarah Park, who reported directly to me and thought Kenji was a competent but unremarkable mid-level hire. What he also didn't know, I'd been documenting everything for 6 months. Every condescending comment. Every time he'd talked over me, dismissed my ideas, or explained basic concepts I'd invented. Every conversation in Japanese where he thought I couldn't understand. My mother was Japanese. I'd spent summers in Kyoto with my grandmother. I spoke, read, and wrote Japanese fluently, a fact I'd never mentioned to Kenji because he'd never asked. He'd just assumed, like he assumed everything about me. I retreated to the second bedroom I used as a home office for my freelance work and locked the door. The space looked ordinary enough. A desk, a computer, some filing cabinets. Nothing to suggest that behind the false back of the closet was a secure server room with quantum-encrypted connections to Zenith's actual headquarters. I pressed my thumb to the biometric scanner hidden in the closet doorframe. The false back slid open silently, revealing my real workspace. 3 curved monitors flickered to life, displaying real-time data from every corner of my empire. Zenith Technologies, valued at $3.2 billion, employing over 2,000 people across 4 continents. My creation, my legacy. An encrypted message waited from Sarah. Tomorrow's board meeting agenda confirmed. Kenji's integration proposal scheduled for 10 a.m. All documentation prepared per your instructions. The axe is sharpened and ready. I smiled. Sarah knew. She'd figured it out 3 months ago when she'd seen me in the parking garage, getting out of my used Honda before an anonymous video board meeting. To her credit, she'd simply sent me an encrypted message. Your secret is safe, but that man doesn't deserve you. She'd been helping me document everything since then. Every technical decision Kenji claimed credit for that actually came from my anonymous directives. Every condescending email he'd sent to junior female employees. Every time he'd taken credit for team members' work in reports. Kenji wasn't just a bad boyfriend. He was a mediocre employee who'd been coasting on the infrastructure I'd built, the opportunities I'd created, and the patience of colleagues too professional to call out his behavior. Tomorrow, that would end. My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up the presentation he'd be giving in. I checked the time. 13 hours. I'd received it through official channels this afternoon, flagged for CEO review. It was decent work. Not brilliant, but competent. He'd identified the key integration points. outlined a reasonable timeline, addressed the major technical challenges. He'd also taken credit for solutions that Dr. Park's team had developed, presented architecture recommendations that I'd personally designed and fed through official channels, and claimed the merger strategy was his vision, when he'd simply been implementing the plan my leadership team had created. Classic Kenji. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. I opened a separate window and began typing my own notes for tomorrow's meeting. Not as M. Chen, mysterious CEO. As Maya Chen, Kenji's underachieving girlfriend, who would be sitting in that boardroom, in person, for the first time ever. The plan had been forming for weeks, crystallizing with each Japanese insult he'd thought I couldn't understand, each dismissive comment about my struggles to find work. But tonight's phone call had sealed it. I was done hiding. Tomorrow, Zenith's leadership team would finally meet their CEO face to face. And Kenji would discover that the woman he'd been calling useless had built everything he thought made him successful. My phone buzzed. A text from Kenji. "Hey babe, going to work late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you." Love you. The words felt hollow now, worn smooth of meaning. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up the master file Sarah and I had been compiling. Every email, every message, every documented instance of Kenji's behavior over the past 6 months. The evidence we'd need for what came next. Because this wasn't just about revenge, it was about accountability. And it was about finally stepping into the light. I worked through the night, reviewing documents, finalizing preparations, rehearsing what I'd say. The boardroom scene played out in my mind 100 different ways. Kenji's face when he saw me walk in, his confusion, then recognition, then horror as he realized the truth. At 3 a.m., I finally closed my laptop and stood, my body stiff from hours at the desk. Through the walls, I could hear Kenji's soft snoring from our bedroom. He'd come home around midnight, slipped into bed without checking on me. I walked to the bedroom doorway and watched him sleep. In the dim light filtering through the curtains, he looked peaceful, almost innocent. For a moment, just a moment, I wondered if I was making a mistake. If I should give him another chance. Explain who I really was. See if the man I'd fallen for 3 years ago was still in there somewhere. Then I remembered his words. Maybe I'll upgrade everything. Apartment, car, girlfriend. The moment passed. I returned to my office and sent a final encrypted message to Sarah. "It's time. See you at 9. Her response came immediately, despite the late hour. "About damn time. I'll have security ready. This is going to be legendary." I allowed myself a small smile. Sarah had a flair for the dramatic. But she was right. Tomorrow would be legendary. In the tech world, in business circles, probably in social media once the story got out. But more importantly, it would be true. Finally, wholly, completely true. No more hiding. No more pretending to be less than I was. No more watching the man I loved treat me like I was worthless. I pulled up one final document, the termination papers I'd had legal prepare last week. Kenji's name at the top, followed by a detailed list of performance issues, credit taking, and professional misconduct. All documented, all verified, all ironclad. Alongside his were 4 other names. His closest allies at Zenith, the ones who'd been enabling his behavior, taking credit for others' work, creating a toxic environment in the architecture division. Sarah had suggested we clean house. I'd agreed. Tomorrow wouldn't just be about Kenji. It would be about setting a new standard for Zenith Technologies, about making it clear that this company, my company, valued integrity, collaboration, and actual merit over performance theater and borrowed brilliance. I finally crawled into bed around 4 a.m., keeping to my side, careful not to wake Kenji. Sleep came in fits and starts, my mind too wired with anticipation. At 6 a.m., my alarm buzzed softly. I silenced it quickly and slipped out of bed. Kenji stirred. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said honestly. "Thought I'd go for a run." He mumbled something and rolled over. Within seconds, he was snoring again. I showered and dressed carefully. Not in my usual casual clothes, but in the power suit I kept hidden in the back of my closet. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, paired with heels that added 3 inches to my height. I styled my hair in a sleek ponytail, applied minimal but polished makeup. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked like a CEO, like someone who commanded rooms and made billion-dollar decisions, like who I actually was. I left the apartment at 7 a.m., leaving a note on the kitchen counter. "Early morning coffee with a friend. Good luck at your board meeting today. You'll be amazing. M." The drive to Zenith headquarters took 20 minutes. I'd made this trip countless times before, but always to the underground parking garage, using the private executive elevator that led directly to the secured CEO suite on the top floor. A space Kenji had never been to, that most employees didn't even know existed. Today, I parked in the main garage and took the public elevator to the 15th floor, where the main boardroom was located. Sarah was waiting by the elevator banks, 2 coffee cups in hand. She took one look at me and grinned. There she is, the ghost made flesh. I accepted the coffee gratefully. "You ready for this?" "I've been ready for months, but Maya?" She touched my arm gently. "Are you sure? Once you do this, there's no going back. Your anonymity will be gone. Your relationship will be over. Everything changes." I met her eyes. Sarah Park was 52, had worked in tech for 30 years, and had seen every flavor of industry drama. She was asking not as my employee, but as my friend. "He called me. Useless," I said quietly. In Japanese, thinking I wouldn't understand. He's been planning to upgrade girlfriends once the merger closes. And Sarah, he's been taking credit for your team's work for months. Her jaw tightened. "Then let's burn it down." We walked to the boardroom together. It was still early, 8:30 a.m. The meeting didn't start until 9, but I wanted to be there first. Wanted to see their faces as they arrived, one by one, and realized who I was. The boardroom was exactly as I'd designed it. Professional, but not ostentatious, with a massive table that could seat 20, walls of windows overlooking downtown Seattle, and the Zenith logo etched in subtle silver on the far wall. I took my seat at the head of the table, the CEO's chair, my chair. Sarah sat to my right, her laptop already open, documents ready. At 8:45, the board members began arriving. First was Robert Chen, no relation, our CFO. He'd been working with M. Chen for 5 years through encrypted channels. He walked in focused on his phone, looked up, stopped dead. "Dr. Chen?" His voice cracked slightly. "Good morning, Robert. Please, sit." He sat slowly, his eyes never leaving my face. All this time, I confirmed. Next was Jennifer Park, our chief legal officer. She'd been in on the secret from the beginning. You can't hide your identity from your own lawyer. She gave me an encouraging nod and took her seat. The other board members filtered in. Our chief operations officer, chief technology officer, and 3 external board members who'd only ever known me as a voice on encrypted calls and a signature on documents. Their reactions ranged from shock to confusion to dawning understanding. By 8:55, everyone was seated except for 2 people. Dr. Sarah Park, who was already sitting beside me, her expression professionally neutral, but her eyes gleaming with anticipation, and Kenji Tanaka, who would be presenting his integration proposal. At exactly 9 a.m., the boardroom door opened. Kenji walked in, confident and polished in his best suit, laptop bag over his shoulder, carrying himself like a man about to impress important people. He was looking at his phone, typing something, probably texting me, telling me how nervous he was, how much this presentation mattered. He looked up, saw me. The phone slipped from his hand and clattered on the polished floor. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The silence stretched, heavy and electric. Kenji's face cycled through emotions too fast to track: confusion, recognition, disbelief, denial, and finally, creeping horror. "Maya?" His voice was barely a whisper. What are you doing here?" I let the question hang in the air, watching him scramble for understanding. Behind him, Sarah quietly closed the boardroom door. I stood slowly, smoothing my suit jacket, letting the full weight of the moment settle over the room. "Good morning, Mr. Tanaka," I said, my voice clear and professional. "Thank you for joining us. Please, take a seat. I believe you have a presentation to give to the board." "I don't understand," he said, still frozen by the door. How did you—" Robert Chen cleared his throat. "Mr. Tanaka, may I introduce our founder and CEO, Dr. Maya Chen, though I believe you two have already met." I watched the words hit him like physical blows. His face went white, then red, then white again. "CEO?" The word came out strangled. No, that's not possible. M. Chen is me," I said simply. "It's always been me." He looked around the room wildly, seeking support, finding only neutral faces watching him with professional interest. These people had known who I was for years, or in the case of the external board members, were rapidly connecting dots and realizing why the mysterious CEO had finally decided to reveal herself in person. "This is insane," Kenji said, his voice rising. "This is some kind of joke. Maya, what the hell is going on? Why are you pretending to be—" "I'm not pretending anything." I cut him off, my voice sharp. "I built this company 7 years ago. I wrote the core algorithms. I filed the patents. I grew Zenith from a dorm room project to a $3 billion enterprise. And for the past 3 years, I've been watching you work here, completely unaware that your unemployable girlfriend was actually your CEO." The color drained from his face entirely now. 3 years? You've been lying to me for 3 years? "I've been protecting myself," I corrected. "Something I learned to do after my first startup was stolen by people I trusted. So yes, I hid who I was. From everyone, including you. But we're engaged." His voice cracked. "We're supposed to get married. You were supposed to trust me." "Trust you?" The words came out colder than I'd intended. "Let me tell you what I've learned about trust over the past 3 years, Kenji. I've learned that the man I loved, the man I thought saw me as an equal, was just waiting for the right moment to upgrade to a better model." His eyes widened. You heard that call." "I've heard a lot of calls. I understand Japanese, by the way. Yakuni tatanai. Useless. That's what you called me last night. Among other things." He reached for the back of a chair to steady himself. Around the room, I could see board members' expressions hardening as they put together what had happened. Maya, I can explain. I don't need explanations, I said. I need you to sit down and give your presentation. You've been preparing it all week. The board is waiting to hear your integration proposal for the Nakamura acquisition. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You wanted to impress the board. Here's your chance. Impress me. He looked at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe he'd only ever seen the version of me he'd wanted to see. Small, manageable, easy to diminish. Mr. Tanaka, Robert, Chen said firmly. Please take your seat and begin your presentation. The board has a full agenda today. Kenji moved like a man in a dream, setting his laptop bag on the table with shaking hands, pulling out his computer. He sat 3 chairs down from me, as far as he could get while still being at the main table. He opened his presentation file, and the first slide appeared on the large screen at the front of the room. Nakamura Integration Proposal, presented by Kenji Tanaka, Senior Systems Architect. I settled back in my chair, fingers steepled, watching him with the full attention I'd give any employee presentation. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Tanaka. He looked at me one more time, something pleading in his eyes. I kept my expression neutral. He cleared his throat and began. Good morning, board members. Today I'll be presenting the technical integration strategy for the Nakamura acquisition. This merger represents a significant opportunity for Zenith to dominate the cloud security sector by combining our platform with Nakamura's quantum-resistant encryption technology. I let him talk, watching carefully. His voice was shaky at first, but he fell into the rhythm of his presentation, the familiar material steadying him. To his credit, he was a decent presenter when he found his footing. But I wasn't listening to his words. I was listening to what wasn't being said. 3 slides in, he presented an architecture diagram I recognized immediately. This integration framework was designed to minimize disruption while maximizing synergy between the 2 platforms, he said confidently. I leaned forward. Excuse me, Mr. Tanaka. Quick question about that diagram. He froze mid-sentence. Where did this architectural framework originate? I developed it over the past few weeks, working with my team. Your team being? The architecture division, under my direction. I turned to Sarah. Dr. Park, didn't your team develop this exact framework 3 months ago? Sarah pulled up a document on her laptop. Yes, Dr. Chen. Integration Framework Alpha, completed March 15th. Full documentation is in the project repository. Mr. Tanaka's team was given access to our work 2 weeks ago to provide implementation feedback. Kenji's face flushed. We built on the foundation, added significant improvements. Show me the improvements, I said calmly. He clicked to the next slide, but I could see his hands shaking now. Here. We've optimized the data migration protocols. Those protocols are identical to Dr. Park's original specifications, I interrupted, down to the specific encryption parameters. Which makes sense, since I designed those parameters myself 2 years ago, and they're part of Zenith's proprietary architecture. The room had gone very quiet. Let's move on, I said. Tell me about the timeline you've proposed for integration. He clicked through several slides, outlining phases, milestones, resource, allocation. It was competent work, solid even, but it was also work that had been done by teams of people, synthesized and presented as if he'd masterminded it all alone. I let him finish the entire presentation, 45 minutes of careful corporate speak and technical details. When he clicked to his final slide, questions, he looked exhausted and defeated. "Thank you, Mr. Tanaka," I said. "That was very thorough. Board members, any questions?" Jennifer Park, our chief legal officer, raised her hand. "I have a question about attribution. Mr. Tanaka, on slide 12, you presented what you called your vision for the merger's market positioning. Can you explain how that vision was developed?" Kenji hesitated. "It's based on market analysis and strategic planning." "Strange," Jennifer said mildly, "because that exact market positioning strategy was outlined in a memo from Dr. Chen to the executive team 6 months ago. Word for word, in fact. I incorporated existing company strategy into my recommendations," Kenji said, his voice tight. "That's what good employees do." "There's a difference between incorporating strategy and claiming credit for it," Robert Chen added. The trap was closing around him, and he knew it. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Mr. Tanaka," I said quietly, "I'm not here to humiliate you, but I need the board to understand something. You've been working at Zenith for 2 years. In that time, you've been a competent systems architect. Not brilliant, but competent. The problem isn't your technical skills. It's how you've presented yourself and treated others." "What are you talking about?" But his voice lacked conviction now. Sarah pulled up another document. "Over the past 6 months, we've documented 17 instances of you taking credit for team members' work. 43 emails to junior employees, particularly women, that were condescending or dismissive. And multiple instances of you sharing strategic information with outside contacts that should have remained confidential." His face went from red to white. "You've been spying on me?" "We've been doing standard performance documentation," I corrected. "Something we do with all employees. Most just don't have as much to document." "This is because I broke up with you, isn't it?" He stood up suddenly, his chair scraping back. "You're doing this because you're hurt. This is revenge." I stood too, slowly, drawing myself to my full height. Even with my heels, he was taller than me. But power isn't about physical size. "You didn't break up with me, Kenji. We're still engaged. At least, we were as of this morning." I pulled off the modest ring he'd given me and set it on the table. "Consider this my resignation from that particular position." "Maya." "But you're right about one thing. This is personal. Not because you hurt my feelings, but because you revealed who you really are. The man I fell in love with would never call someone yakuni tatanai, would never plan to upgrade his girlfriend like she was a used car, would never take credit for others' work or treat colleagues with contempt. I made mistakes," he said, and now there was desperation in his voice. "People say things they don't mean when they're stressed. I was wrong, okay? I'm sorry. We can fix this. Just... Can we talk about this privately?" "We're past private conversations," I said. "This stopped being about our relationship when your behavior started affecting my company." "Your company?" he repeated bitterly. "So this is about power. About you being the boss and putting me in my place." "No," I said firmly. "This is about accountability. If you were any other employee exhibiting this behavior, I'd handle it exactly the same way. The only difference is that I let it go on longer than I should have, because I was hoping the man I loved was still in there somewhere." Silence fell over the room. I could feel every board member watching us, this intimate drama playing out in a professional setting. It was uncomfortable, messy, Exactly what I'd normally avoid. But some things needed to be seen. "Mr. Tanaka," I said finally, my voice returning to professional tones. "Effective immediately, you're being placed on administrative leave pending a full review of your conduct. You'll receive a formal letter from HR this afternoon. Your access to company systems will be suspended within the hour. You'll need to surrender your badge and laptop before leaving the building." He stared at me like I'd struck him. "You're firing me?" "I'm following the proper protocols for addressing serious performance issues," I corrected. "The final decision will be made after the review is complete. But Mr. Tanaka, I think we both know what that decision will be." "This is insane." He grabbed his laptop, shoving it roughly into his bag. "You're insane. Do you know what this will do to my reputation? My career? I know what your behavior has done to other people's careers," I said quietly. "Junior employees who didn't speak up because they were afraid. Team members whose work you claimed. Colleagues you undermined. Your reputation will reflect your choices." He moved toward the door, then stopped, turning back. "I loved you." The words might have moved me once. Now they felt hollow. "No, you didn't," I said. "You loved the idea of me, small enough to make you feel big, struggling enough to make you feel successful, useless enough to make you feel valuable. But you never loved me, Kenji, because you never actually saw me." He stood there for another moment, maybe hoping I'd crack, take it all back, choose love over business. I didn't move. Finally, he left, the door closing behind him with a soft click that felt louder than it should have. The boardroom remained silent for several beats. Then Robert Chen cleared his throat. "Well," he said, "that was dramatic." A release of tension rippled through the room. Nervous, laughter from a few board members. "Apologies," I said, returning to my seat. That wasn't how I intended to introduce myself to the full board. But it needed to be done, and I'm tired of hiding. Dr. Chen, one of the external board members, Marcus Williams, spoke up. He was in his 60s, had been on tech company boards for decades. "I've worked with M. Chen remotely for 3 years. In that time, I've watched this company grow exponentially under your leadership. The fact that you felt the need to hide your identity tells me everything I need to know about the challenges women still face in this industry. And the fact that your own fiancé didn't recognize your brilliance," added another board member, Diana Rodriguez, "tells me we still have a lot of work to do." I nodded, accepting their support but not dwelling on it. "Thank you, but I don't want to be seen as a victim in this. I made choices, some good, some I regret. Hiding my identity protected me, but also isolated me. Moving forward, I want to be fully present as CEO. No more shadows, no more encrypted calls. Zenith deserves a leader who isn't afraid to be seen." "Hear, hear," Sarah said, and others nodded in agreement. We spent the rest of the morning in strategic discussions. The Nakamura merger would proceed, but with Dr. Park's team leading the integration, not Kenji's compromised proposal. We addressed other business, quarterly projections, a potential expansion into the European market, upcoming patent renewals. Normal business. Except for the first time in 7 years, I was conducting it as myself. Fully, visibly. No more hiding behind encrypted screens and anonymous signatures. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. By noon, when the board meeting concluded, news was already spreading through the company. HR had sent out a careful announcement. Zenith Technologies is pleased to formally introduce Dr. Maya Chen, our founder and CEO, who will now be working on-site and visible to all employees. We look forward to this new era of transparent leadership. My phone had been buzzing constantly with messages, most from employees I'd never met in person, welcoming me. Some from industry contacts who'd heard through the grapevine and were shocked. A few from journalists already sniffing for a story. And one from Kenji. "We need to talk. Please." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked through Zenith's offices for the first time as myself. Every floor, every department, introducing myself to surprised employees, shaking hands, listening to their excitement and their questions. "Wait, you're the M. Chen?" asked a young engineer, probably fresh out of college. "The one who wrote the quantum encryption algorithms?" "That's me," I confirmed. "Oh my God, you're like my hero. Your paper on distributed architecture changed my entire approach to system design." It was surreal, hearing my own work discussed by someone who'd studied it, learned from it, never knowing the author had been hiding in plain sight. By evening, I was exhausted. Not from the day's events, from years of carrying the weight of secrecy, of being half present in my own life. I returned to the penthouse around 7 p.m., uncertain what I'd find. Would Kenji be there? Would he have moved out? Destroyed things? The apartment was empty. Silent. No, not silent. There was a note on the kitchen counter. I unfolded it with trembling hands. "Maya, I've gone to stay with Marcus for a while. I need time to process everything. I don't know what to think or feel right now. Part of me is angry that you lied. Part of me is ashamed of the things I said. Part of me still loves you, even though I don't understand how any of this is real. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to be the kind of man who makes someone feel small. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's enough, but it's true. I'll arrange to get my things later. We should probably talk, but not yet. I need to figure out who I am without you. Or maybe who I thought you were. I don't know anymore. K." I read the note 3 times, looking for something I couldn't name. Sincerity? Understanding? Love? Maybe it was all there. Maybe none of it mattered now. I folded the note and set it aside, then walked to the windows. The Seattle skyline glittered below. All those lives happening in parallel. Each person carrying their own hidden truths. My phone buzzed. "Sarah, how are you holding up? Need wine and bad movies?" I smiled at the offer. "Rain check. I need to sit with this." "Fair enough, but Maya, you did the right thing. Whatever happens next, you did the right thing." I wanted to believe that. I'd spent 3 years hiding, protecting myself from being hurt again. In the process, I'd built walls so high I'd trap myself inside them. Kenji hadn't been allowed to love the real me because he'd never met her. But that didn't excuse his behavior. The contempt, the dismissiveness, the casual cruelty. Both things could be true. I'd hidden myself, and he'd revealed himself. Tomorrow, the media storm would start. Industry blogs, tech news sites, maybe even mainstream media. Secret tech CEO revealed, hiding in plain sight for years. Woman builds billion-dollar company while fiancé calls her unemployable. The headlines would be sensational, invasive, probably reductive. But they'd be true, and I'd face them as myself. Finally, fully, without apology or disguise. I changed into comfortable clothes, poured a glass of wine, and stood at the window watching the city lights. Somewhere out there, Kenji was probably doing the same thing, trying to reconcile the woman he'd thought he knew with the reality he'd just discovered. I hoped he found what he needed. I genuinely did. But I was done making myself smaller to fit into someone else's story. Tomorrow would bring challenges, PR management, difficult conversations, the complex work of untangling our shared life. We'd have to divide possessions, break a lease, cancel wedding plans. But tonight, in the quiet of my penthouse, finally alone with the truth, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Free. My phone buzzed one more time. An encrypted message from my head of security. Dr. Chen, standard protocol question. Do you want to review surveillance footage from the apartment? Mr. Tanaka spent approximately 90 minutes here after leaving the office. Want to verify no confidential materials were compromised? Right. Because I wasn't just a woman ending an engagement. I was a CEO protecting her company's interests. Send me the footage, I replied. And thank you for the protocol reminder. The footage arrived within minutes. I watched on fast forward as Kenji moved through the apartment, packing a bag, sitting on the couch with his head in his hands, writing the note I'd found. He didn't go near my office, didn't try to access my computer, just packed his clothes, his personal items, and left. In some ways, that made it harder. If he'd been vindictive, tried to steal information or sabotage something, it would have been easier to write him off completely. Instead, he just looked broken, lost, human. I closed the video file and set my phone aside. This was the cost of truth. Messiness, pain, complicated emotions that didn't fit neatly into victim and villain narratives. I'd won, in the way that mattered. I'd protected my company, held someone accountable, and stepped into my own power. But winning felt lonelier than I'd expected. The tech blogs exploded overnight. Mystery solved. Zenith Technologies CEO revealed after 7 years of anonymity. Tech's best-kept secret. Woman built 3B company, while Fiancé called her unemployable. The Phantom CEO, Dr. Maya Chen, steps into the light. I woke at 6 a.m. to my phone vibrating nonstop. Hundreds of notifications. LinkedIn messages from colleagues I'd never met in person. Emails from journalists. 3 missed calls from my mother, who'd apparently seen the news on her morning tech feed. And 1 text from Kenji, sent at 3:47 a.m. The entire world knows now. Was humiliating me publicly part of your plan? I stared at that message for a long time before typing my response. You humiliated yourself. I just stopped hiding. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't get one. By the time I arrived at Zenith headquarters at 7:30, there was a small crowd of reporters outside the main entrance. Security had already been briefed. They escorted me through a side entrance while cameras flashed and questions were shouted. Dr. Chen, why did you hide your identity? Is it true your fiancé worked here without knowing? Are you making a statement about women in tech? I didn't answer. Not yet. Sarah had scheduled a proper press conference for tomorrow, giving us time to craft the narrative carefully. Inside, the office had a different energy. Employees who'd passed me in hallways for years now did double takes. Some approached to introduce themselves properly. Others whispered in clusters, stealing glances. Dr. Chen? A young woman from the engineering department approached nervously. I just wanted to say thank you for showing us that we don't have to make ourselves smaller to succeed. Her words hit harder than expected. You never had to, I said gently. But I understand why it feels that way sometimes. She nodded, eyes bright, and hurried back to her desk. Sarah was waiting in my office, my actual office, the CEO suite I'd designed but rarely used in person. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, walls lined with whiteboards covered in half-finished algorithms. The press is already spinning this a dozen different ways, she said, handing me her tablet. But the overall sentiment is positive. People are calling you a genius, an icon, a symbol of women fighting back against tech's boys club. I scrolled through headlines and social media posts. Most were supportive. Some were skeptical, questioning why I'd hidden, whether the Kenji situation was real or staged for publicity. A few were outright hostile, calling me manipulative, vindictive, cruel. "There's also this," Sarah said carefully, pulling up a different article. "Kenji gave a statement to TechCrunch this morning." My stomach tightened. "What did he say?" She read from her tablet. "I'm devastated by recent events. Maya and I had our struggles like any couple, but I never imagined she was capable of such calculated deception. For 3 years, she watched me work at her company, knowing the truth, allowing me to believe I was building my own career. When our relationship hit rough patches, instead of communicating, she orchestrated a public humiliation. I made mistakes. I said things I regret, but I don't believe I deserve this level of betrayal and professional destruction." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. He was reframing the narrative, making himself the victim, me the villain. "He's playing the sympathy card," Sarah said, "painting you as cold and calculating. Some people are buying it. Some people will always find reasons to criticize women in power," I said, setting down the tablet. "We knew this would get messy." "It's about to get messier." She pulled up another document. "We completed the full investigation into Kenji's conduct. The credit stealing, the inappropriate communications with junior staff, the confidential information sharing. It's all documented and verified. Legal says we have grounds for immediate termination with cause." "Do it," I said without hesitation. "Maya, are you sure? Given the media attention, firing him now will look like revenge." "It's not revenge. It's accountability. If he were any other employee with this record, he'd already be gone. The fact that we were engaged doesn't change his professional misconduct." Sarah nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll have HR process it today. But you should know. His attorney already reached out. They're threatening a wrongful termination suit, claiming the investigation is biased because of your personal relationship." I'd expected this. Let them try. We have documentation from before our relationship ended. Timestamps, witness statements, work product comparisons. Everything is ironclad. They'll argue emotional distress, hostile work environment, that you created an impossible situation by hiding your identity. Maybe, I acknowledged. But Sarah, I can't run this company based on fear of lawsuits. If I back down now, it sends a message that personal relationships override professional standards. I won't do that. She smiled slightly. "That's what I was hoping you'd say. I'll inform legal to proceed." After she left, I stood at the windows, looking out over Seattle. Somewhere in this city, Kenji was probably doing the same thing, preparing his defense, building his case for why I was the villain in this story. Maybe he even believed it. My phone rang. My mother. "Maya." Her voice was tight with concern. "I just saw the news. Why didn't you tell me what was happening?" "I couldn't, Mom. Not while I was still figuring it out. This boy, Kenji, I never liked him. Too smooth, too confident. But sweetheart, this is all over the internet. People are saying terrible things." "People always say terrible things about women who refuse to be small." She was quiet for a moment. "You sound like your grandmother. She would be proud of you, you know, for building something this significant, for standing up for yourself." My throat tightened. My grandmother had been a businesswoman in Tokyo in the 1960s, fighting against overwhelming odds. She'd understood the cost of success for women. "I miss her," I said quietly. "She's watching, and she's proud." A pause. "Are you okay, Maya? Really okay?" Was I? I'd won the battle, exposed the truth, protected my company, held someone accountable. But I'd also lost the man I thought I'd spend my life with, sacrificed my privacy, and painted a target on my back for every critic who wanted to tear down successful women. I'm getting there, I said honestly. We talked for a few more minutes before she had to go. After hanging up, I pulled up my personal email, separate from work, and found dozens of messages from friends I hadn't spoken to in years, all reaching out with support or curiosity. One stood out. From Jennifer Wu, my roommate from Stanford, who'd been there when my first startup was stolen. Maya, I saw the news and I've been crying all morning. Not sad tears, proud ones. You did it. You built something they couldn't take from you. You became exactly who you were meant to be. That guy never deserved you anyway. Love, Jenny. I read it 3 times, letting the validation wash over me. The day continued in a blur of meetings, statements, strategic planning. By late afternoon, HR had officially terminated Kenji's employment. His attorney sent a threatening letter within the hour. Legal sent a measured response citing documented cause and company policy. The chess match had begun. At 6 p.m., I was still at my desk when Sarah knocked. "There's someone here to see you. Says it's personal." Marcus Thompson. Apparently he's a friend of Kenji's? I remembered Marcus, Kenji's college roommate, fellow tech worker, one of his closest friends. "Send him in." Marcus was tall, nervous, clearly uncomfortable. He sat across from my desk, fidgeting with his phone. "Dr. Chen, Maya, I don't really know how to start this." "Why are you here, Marcus?" "Kenji's a mess. He's staying at my place, barely eating, can't sleep. He's convinced you planned this whole thing from the beginning, that you never actually loved him." "What do you think?" I asked. He met my eyes. "Honestly? I think you both screwed up. You lied about who you were. He said awful things and took you for granted. But Maya, did it have to end like this? In front of his colleagues? In the media? Destroying his career? His career isn't destroyed. He's a talented engineer. He'll find work." "Not after this. You know how the industry works. Nobody wants to hire the guy who got publicly fired by his secret CEO girlfriend." The words hit their mark. Because he was right, I'd known exactly what exposing Kenji would do to his reputation. "So what would you have preferred?" I asked. "That I stay silent? Keep hiding? Let him continue taking credit for others' work and treating employees badly?" "No, but couldn't you have handled it privately? Ended the relationship? Dealt with the work stuff separately?" I tried private for 3 years, Marcus. Every time I heard him dismiss me, call me useless, treat me like I was less than him, I stayed quiet because I loved him. I made myself small because I thought it would protect us, but all it did was enable his worst behavior. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "He really said those things? Called you useless?" In Japanese, yakuni tatanai, he thought I couldn't understand. Jesus! He rubbed his face. I knew he could be arrogant, but I didn't realize... Look, I'm not here to defend everything he did. I just thought maybe you could help him. Maybe offer some kind of olive branch. What kind of olive branch? A recommendation? Or just a statement to the press that he wasn't all bad? Something to help him move forward? I considered it. One statement could soften the blow for Kenji, make me look magnanimous, take some heat off both of us. It would also be a lie. Marcus, I can't vouch for work I didn't see him do. I can't recommend someone who took credit for others' accomplishments. And I won't make public statements to protect his feelings when he never once protected mine. So that's it? You're just going to let him crash and burn? No. I said firmly. I'm going to let him face the consequences of his own choices. There's a difference. Marcus stood, disappointed but not surprised. He really did love you, you know, in his own flawed way. Maybe, I acknowledged. But love isn't enough when it comes with contempt. After he left, I sat in the gathering darkness, not bothering to turn on lights. Was I being too harsh? Too unforgiving? Or was I finally standing up for myself after years of making excuses for men who saw me as less than I was? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Kenji. Different phone. Can we please talk? Really talk? Not as CEO and employee, as two people who used to love each other? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. 3 years ago, I would have said yes immediately. Would have rushed to fix things, to smooth over conflict, to make myself easier to love. But I wasn't that person anymore. There's nothing left to say, I typed back. You showed me exactly who you are. I believe you. His response came quickly. And you showed me who you are too. Someone who can watch the person they love struggle and fail, knowing you could help, and choosing not to. We're both guilty, Maya. The words burrowed under my skin. Because maybe he was right. Maybe I could have revealed myself earlier, given him a chance to adjust, worked through things differently. But then I remembered his laugh when his friends mocked me. His voice saying, upgrade. The casual cruelty he'd shown when he thought no one important was watching. The difference, I typed, is that I hid to protect myself. You revealed yourself when you felt safe. Goodbye, Kenji. I blocked the number. The next day's press conference was surreal. Dozens of cameras, reporters from major outlets, flashing lights. I wore a navy suit, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. Sarah had helped me prepare talking points, but I'd mostly thrown them out. Good morning. I'm Dr. Maya Chen, founder and CEO of Zenith Technologies. Many of you have questions about why I maintained anonymity for 7 years. The simple answer is, I was scared. My first startup was stolen by people I trusted. I watched other women in tech get dismissed, undermined, or credited for work they'd done. So when I built Zenith, I decided to remove myself from the equation, to let the work speak for itself. I paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Was it the right choice? I don't know. It protected me professionally, but it also isolated me personally. It allowed me to build something extraordinary, but it prevented me from taking credit for it. And yes, it created a situation where someone I loved didn't truly know me. Dr. Chen, a reporter called out, do you regret how things ended with your fiancé? I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret standing up for myself or protecting my company's integrity. Are you making a statement about women in tech? I'm making a statement about authenticity, about refusing to make yourself smaller to fit someone else's expectations. That applies to everyone, regardless of gender. Will you remain as public CEO or return to anonymity? I'm staying visible. It's time. The questions continued for 40 minutes. Some sympathetic, some skeptical, all probing. By the end, I was exhausted but clear-headed. The media cycle continued for another week. Think pieces about women in tech, about corporate anonymity, about the ethics of hiding your identity from a romantic partner. The story took on a life of its own, morphing into a symbol of larger issues. Kenji tried twice more to reach me through intermediaries. Both times, I declined. His wrongful termination lawsuit was filed and quickly dismissed. Our documentation was too thorough. He eventually found a position at a smaller tech firm, though at a significant pay cut and lower title. I felt no satisfaction in that, just a dull acceptance that this was how things ended. 3 months later, I was working late in my office when Sarah knocked. "Got a minute? There's something you should see." She pulled up a video on her tablet. It was from a tech conference panel on ethics in the workplace. Kenji was one of the speakers. "I made significant mistakes in my previous position," he was saying, his voice measured. "I took credit for others' work. I was dismissive of colleagues. I said things I deeply regret. The way everything came to light was painful, but it forced me to confront behaviors I'd been excusing for years." He paused, looking directly at the camera. "I've spent the past 3 months in therapy, working on understanding why I felt the need to diminish others to feel successful. It's been humbling. And I want to be clear. While I wish things had ended differently with Maya, Dr. Chen, she was right to hold me accountable. I've sent her several apologies through appropriate channels. She doesn't owe me forgiveness, but I hope someday she'll know I'm genuinely trying to be better." I watched the video twice, trying to parse what I felt. Relief, vindication, sadness for what might have been. "He seems sincere," Sarah offered carefully. "Maybe he is," I said. "People can change, or at least try to. Does it change anything for you?" I thought about that. About the man I'd loved 3 years ago, the man who'd revealed himself, and now this man claiming to be working on himself. "No," I said finally. "I'm glad he's getting help. I hope he becomes someone better. But that doesn't mean I need to be part of his journey." Sarah nodded, understanding without judgment. That night, I wrote Kenji one final email. "Kenji, I saw your conference panel. I'm glad you're taking responsibility and working on yourself. That takes real courage. But I need you to understand something. My decision to reveal myself wasn't about punishing you. It was about finally being honest. With the world, with myself, and yes, with you. You called me useless in a language you thought I didn't understand. But the truth is, you never understood me at all. Not because you couldn't, but because you never tried. I don't hate you. I don't wish you harm. I just wish you well, from a distance. Take care of yourself. Maya." I hit send before I could second guess it, then closed that chapter of my email forever. 6 months after the revelation, Zenith Technologies was thriving. Revenue was up 30%. We'd successfully integrated the Nakamura acquisition. Employee satisfaction surveys showed marked improvement, especially among women and minority staff who felt more empowered with visible leadership. I'd become a somewhat reluctant face of women in tech, giving occasional talks and interviews. It was uncomfortable, being so visible after years in shadow. But it was also freeing. Dr. Sarah Park was promoted to Chief Technology Officer. Jennifer Park, our Chief Legal Officer, helped us implement new policies around workplace conduct and credit attribution. We fired 3 more senior employees for similar issues as Kenji's, not because of him, but because the investigation opened doors we'd been ignoring. I sold the penthouse, too many memories, and bought a smaller place in Capitol Hill. Decorated it myself, filled it with things I actually liked rather than impressive statement pieces. And slowly, carefully, I started dating again. This time as myself, Maya Chen, CEO of Zenith Technologies. No hiding, no pretending to be smaller than I was. It was terrifying. It was also exhilarating. One evening, almost a year after everything exploded, I was walking through Pike Place Market when I saw him. Kenji, standing in front of a flower stall, holding a bouquet of dahlias, my favorite, though I'd never told him that. He saw me at the same moment. We both froze. Then he walked over, slowly, like approaching a skittish animal. Maya, hi. Kenji. An awkward pause. We'd gone from engaged to strangers in less than a year. These are for my mom, he said, gesturing to the flowers. Her birthday. That's nice. Another pause. You look good, he said finally. Happy? I am. You? Getting there. He shifted his weight. I've been meaning to. I know you got my email. I just wanted to say, in person, that I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not just for what I said, but for who I was. You deserved so much better. I studied his face. He looked older, tired, but also somehow lighter. Like he'd put down a weight he didn't know he was carrying. I accept your apology, I said. And I'm sorry, too, for not being honest sooner, for letting things get so bad before addressing them. You did what you needed to do, he said quietly. I see that now. We stood there in the market, surrounded by tourists and flowers and the smell of fresh fish. Two people who'd loved each other badly, trying to find peace. I hope life treats you well, Kenji, I said finally. You too, Maya. Or should I say Dr. Chen? A ghost of his old smile. Maya is fine. He nodded, started to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, watching you step into your power like that, fully visible, unapologetic, it was incredible. Even though it destroyed us, I'm glad I got to witness it. Then he was gone, disappearing into the market crowd. I stood there for a moment, feeling something shift and settle inside me. Not closure, exactly, but acceptance. We'd loved each other badly. We'd hurt each other deeply. But we'd also taught each other important lessons about authenticity, accountability, and the price of hiding. I bought myself flowers, bright sunflowers, bold and unapologetic, and walked home through the city I was finally learning to navigate as my full self. There would be more challenges, more people who thought I was too ambitious, too visible, too much. More critics who questioned my choices, my methods, my right to take up space. But I was done making myself small to make others comfortable. I was done hiding my brilliance to protect fragile egos. I was done being yakunita tanai, useless in anyone's story. Because I'd built an empire while pretending to be nobody. Imagine what I could do while being completely, unapologetically myself. The thought made me smile as I unlocked my door, stepped into my home, and began writing the next chapter of a story that was finally, fully mine. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.